And we can now start this after lunch session. My name is Joana Paulino. I'm going to be presenting and moderating this part session. The first speaker will be George Bruseker. He is a co-chair of CIDOC CRM SIG, a chair of RWG. He works and conducts research in the space of semantic data management. His major interests in this area include semantic data workflows, sustainability, and the modeling of historical data. He has a PhD from the National and Couple History at the University of Takin in philosophy and held an experienced researcher master's at the Foundation for Research and Technology Health. He has worked in both academia and industry, museums, cultural heritage, and history sectors on the generation of ontologies and their application to research data. Nowadays, he is the CEO of Takin.solutions, which is a semantic data management company working on developing sustainable semantic data procedures and projects. And George will be talking to us about the interplay of infrastructure and data semantics to support the evolution of integrated scholarly scientific data. So George, you can start your presentation. You have 14 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to set a timer so I don't go over. Right, thank you very much for having me here. I'm going to start sharing my screen. I hope you all had an excellent lunch. I'm sorry I couldn't join you for that. So the original title of the talk suggested was something like the use of semantic data for research. And the reason that I shifted the title to this rather more unwieldy title was because I thought that given the context of this workshop being hosted by Rossio and being a forum where research infrastructures are involved, that it'd be really interesting to take the time to talk about the sort of intersection and non-intersection of the work that's undertaken by research infrastructures, by people doing ontology and semantics and researchers, and the ways in which they are or could be amplifying each other and pushing each other forward in the sort of common goal of creating sustainable, fair data. And so I think we all push in the same direction. Research infrastructures, for example, want to provide a stable environment to generate, store, and find research. Researchers want to do research, publish it and save it, and then adopt others' research to carry it on and further it. And ontologists want to provide reusable data constructs that are sort of lingua franca that allow you to interoperate, genuinely interoperate data sets for reality-based research. So there's a lot of overlap in intention, and what I want to talk about is how to make a proposal for how we can further magnify each other's work and play to each other's strengths. But to push to why we need to make further efforts on that, I wanted to sort of start with a state of play, sort of contrasting the kind of aims, our ideal aims in these different streams versus practical realities. So I'd argue that in an ideal world, a research infrastructure would be very happy if it received and managed data that says what it means, that was well described and easily integrated, and was an environment where a researcher could go and grab various data set outputs, easily put them together into some tooling, reorganize them, and use them for quantitative and qualitative analysis, using information somehow without borders. Ideally, researchers could range across data within their disciplines, but even across disciplinary boundaries, and be able to use that data because there was provenance to it, so they could critically understand where it came from, what it meant, and how they could use it. And then when they generated research results, that would be logged back into the system with provenance, giving an even richer, ever richer and more coherent set of data. But I think that generally the reality is that research data is rather idiosyncratic. It's often formed in arcane ways that aren't documented or poorly documented, and often shaped by external factors such as system design rather than the semantic content that researchers want to document and share. If researchers do go to the trouble of finding other data sets, it takes them days, months, or even years to integrate that data set in order to be able to actually use it. And there isn't a strong culture of data sharing and reuse, even within disciplines, much less across disciplinary boundaries. Additionally, a culture of data provenance is not firmly established. And so as a result of all that, it creates long-term more and more of a challenge and a difficulty for research infrastructures, because each contribution to the body of knowledge is, in a way, yet another idiocentric data set added to the mix of heterogeneous data to manage. Semanticists, on the other hand, are ideally involved in the study of domains of research. So they work from data and data structures in order to produce a high-level analysis of the propositional content of some domain of knowledge in order to generate a machine processable and human understandable ontology, which allows you to integrate data sets. And ideally, they want to do this in a way that it can be applied into real digital tooling for researchers to either express their data or query their data, both their own and together with other data sets. Something closer to reality is that researchers have not adopted semantics en masse. Ontologies remain abstract and difficult to learn and are not at all part of the standard education process in humanities and social sciences. Furthermore, although we've created these lingua francas, they are not necessarily consistently applied. And as a result, and furthermore, researchers struggle to access and use the tools necessary to adopt and make use of semantic data in the first place. So getting to our last group of people I wanted to talk about, researchers. Well, researchers fundamentally want to do the research, and they look to research infrastructures for a virtual and or physical context to support them, to provide a stability to their research. And they might, in some cases, look to semantics to try to make their data longer lasting and more efficient. So to have an eye towards the more general communicability of their data and its sustainability. But on the closer to reality side, they're often just scrambling for money and childcare, and they are not particularly excited to engage in abstract problems not directly related to their research. So how can we bring the strengths of all of these groups and all aiming towards the same goal closer together and to be more mutually reinforcing? So to start with a more positive note, projects like Rossio, or not projects, but research infrastructures, are a demonstration of investment by society and research communities and governments to finance and do the technical and theoretical work to put together the necessary pooling bodies to try to bring knowledge together. And so we already have established through institutions like Rossio this sort of positive pyramid simplification, but wherein we have research teams that are associated to institutions that bind to national or disciplinary research infrastructures, that bind to international or cross-disciplinary research infrastructures. And ideally, there's a flow already created to push knowledge up and to try to delocalize knowledge about data and research and make it more broadly accessible, and therefore start reaching some of these goals that we're talking about. So what I want to propose is around how we can strengthen this process or turbocharge it, ideally with semantics. Oops. So for that, the proposal basically starts from the idea that research institutes are this base level where there's a context for making sense. And so when we're talking about semantics, which is supposed to be aiding creating these larger and larger coherent sets of data, the problem is that if you just do a project here and a project there, and it's not well documented, etc., it's not really building to anything, and there's not an awareness of how that's situated or from whence the information came in the first place. So before you even start to think about semantics, what you really need to do is have a picture of the provenance of research data in the first place. So, because semantics proposes to represent the propositional content that researchers make. To do that, you need to know the context of their work and all of the factors that shape and impinge upon it. So you need to go from the reality of research in the fields. You need to know the systems that interceded in moving the field or library research into some sort of digital format. You need to know the tools and services that interceded on that. And you need to know the institutional context in which all those things were made in order to be able to do the semantic research in the first place and then put it back into a wider pool of information. So the groundwork of my proposal is to say that what would be interesting is to have research institutes maintaining a database, a knowledge graph that carries the metadata and the paradata that describes not only the data sets that are produced or the software produced within their purview, but all of the relevant contextual data that gives meaning to and gives us the interpretive context to use that information. So the idea is the institution has some such knowledge database. The researcher registers with that database and is then able to use it in order to identify other projects, data sets, etc., that would be of use for semantic integration in the first place. So you create this base picture of what is the case so that you can engage in the long and complicated processes that are often involved in creating semantic data. So, and you register, and if you do those processes and you say there's research database 1, 2, and 3, and we want to semantically integrate that, then you do that work and you register that as well in the knowledge base of the research infrastructure or research institute data. So if we had that base context, if we were reinforcing that aspect of metadata production at the base of the pyramid of providing data up into the world, then I think we'd have a ratcheting mechanism to start more virtuous cycles with regards to this data. So if we have a sort of social contract where a social and institutional contract, where the researcher must register their research into this local knowledge graph, and the local institution provides the maintenance of that metadata and data, and then passes that metadata context up to the research infrastructure level, then I think we have the beginnings of a mechanism to start developing broader and deeper semantic integrations. So it kind of moves us into this picture, which you'll notice is kind of a repeat of the previous picture. And we basically just move up a level. And if we're able to look now across institutional contexts and see not just lists of data sets, but understand the data sets within the context. So the projects that created them, the services that maintain them, the teams that are doing them, then we have a lot more information to guide strategic and intellectual decisions on what it would be worth to look at for semantification, because joining those data sets will make a meaningful integration that makes an even broader cohesion of some subset of data within the overall graph. Whereas we never have to aim for or imagine a total semantic final structure where everything is commensurable and communicates with each other. We just enable the partial integration of data over time according to needs and possibilities and interests. And so if we get to that stage where we have this higher level picture and we can really see strategically why we want to go into a direction, then I think it would better empower the possibility, both from an intellectual research perspective, but also from an institutional perspective, to really invest in the practices and in the infrastructure and in the intellectual work that it takes to make semantic data. Because as I try to illustrate in this diagram here, making semantic data is a multi-person, multi-department, multi-skill operation that requires a lot of interaction with specialists in the content, specialists in semantics, specialists in data transformation, specialists in system setup. So you really want to be able to ground your arguments and your interest in doing such work through being able to contextualize it within this broader picture that could be provided by research infrastructures carrying this contextual picture of what the state of play in research is at any moment. And so then I would argue that, and I'm not arguing that this is already happening in research infrastructures, I'm just saying that we could deepen this activity. And as we deepen that activity, I think that the ability to not just share knowledge up, but to make it more possible to grab the data that's been shared up and bring it back down for new fundamental research will be strengthened, which should create a virtuous cycle, because then that can be shared back up and hopefully we create positive feedback loops. So if you've been following me so far and you're relatively on board with my arguments, you might be asking yourself, well, what are the practical proposals about getting to such a state? And to that, I want to gesture to a few things. So part of this vision comes out of a project that I participated in a number of years ago, a European Union project called the Parthenos Project. And its function was to look at the possibility, what it would be to have a research infrastructure of research infrastructures, so a meta level. And what we worked on was an ontology that would not be an ontology to describe every single part of research data in all possible domains, but rather would describe this level of what is the world of the production of research data in the first place, which is the first thing that you need to know before you go into any semantics in the first place. So that would be a tool. And I wanted to make a nod to Stefan Hennecke of the Max Planck Institute of History of Science, who's been working on implementing the Parthenos ontology for providing this diagram, updating the information. And then, of course, it's nice to have an ontology, and it's harder to actually curate and manage data semantically. So I just wanted to point towards the fact that there are any number of open source projects now coming from different geographic and technical backgrounds that offer the possibility to implement semantics from the ground up, and are very obvious tool choices for the possibility of curating and maintaining such knowledge graphs at an institutional level in preparation to share them with research infrastructures. And I wanted to make another nod, and this is not so coherent with the rest of the argument, but I mentioned in the early part of the talk that one part of semantics that is still difficult is the education and the uptake of that by researchers who are generally focused on their research and not on abstract conceptual languages. And so one of the areas of research that semantics I think should be focused on, and I certainly am, is on the documentation of how you make your data semantic, such that in a very explicit and robust way that speaks to different communities, the researchers that are going to use the data, to developers who are going to implement systems to show or allow querying of the data, and conceptual modelers who need to understand what's in the model in the first place. And I think that sort of documentation would be part of the metadata that you would share as you document your process of creating a semantification of database A, B, and C. And there's an ongoing project of that at the Swiss Art Research Institute in Switzerland. I have 30 seconds left and I'm very close to the end. You might ask, so is anybody doing that or are there some good examples of that? Well, Parthenos was doing that, but it was a project, so the project is over. The Max Planck Institute for the History of Science, of which I mentioned earlier, is in that situation of being a local, being a research institute that is responsible for the management of very many data sets coming from high-level scholarship that comes through all the time. And so they've decided to implement this at an institutional level because they want to both make this picture of what data that they manage and care for, and also create strategies for semantifying parts of it that are interesting to semantify. Coming to conclusions, I think semantics can offer a means to guide creation of research infrastructure metadata and integration from provider institutions to research infrastructures. Research institutes and research infrastructures offer a practical place to apply semantics to find areas of common research. And I want to underline that. I'm sorry, I'm over by a minute. It's really the necessary condition for doing serious semantic work is for it to have a home where it's going to be maintained. Otherwise, it's just a plaything that will come and disappear and be like any other wonky data. If we can do all that, then researchers can find and benefit from semantics, both to find research that complements theirs and also choose directions whereby they can create complementary data sets. So I hope that you found something interesting in my talk, and I look very much forward to talking about taking any questions later on in the session.
Thank you very much, George, for your presentation. We will now hear Rossio. Ricardo is a web curator at Takin.solutions, the Portuguese web service operated by the Scientific Computing Unit of the Portuguese Foundation for Science and Technology, where he is in charge of the training program. He is a member of the Content Development Working Group of the International Internet Preservation Consortium, in which he is the lead curator of the street art collection. Ricardo was part of the Rossio infrastructure for digital humanities research team between 2018 and 2022. He holds a master's degree in documentation and information sciences from the University of Auditório, and he worked both in the art library of the Foundation and at Nova FCSH library. His area of interest is digital presentation, and his presentation has the title Takin.solutions, a web archive provider for open data for the digital humanities. We'll have a couple more minutes because we won't have the presentation from Maria Manuel Borges, so we can give a couple more minutes to Ricardo. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you for the invitation to present Fev.23 to digital humanities researchers. This is the title of my presentation. Archive.pt as a provider of open data. Let's see if this is good. I want to say that you can access the slides on your phone, on your computer. Be free to do that, and click on all this material items there, because the aim of this presentation is to invite you to use Archive.pt and to make your own evaluation. Is Archive.pt useful for your research? If so, how can you use it? So I will put this link, this short link in other slides, so you can later click and access it. This is the purpose of my presentation. That you, at the end, can use and evaluate Archive.pt. Archive.pt is the Portuguese web archive. It is a public preservation service operated by the Foundation for Science and Technology, more specifically by the technological unit, we may say, the FCCM, Scientific Computing Unit. You know, FCCM provides many services for universities in Portugal, like videocast, internet networks, Zoom meetings, etc. And also Archive.pt, a web archive. The facilities are in Lisbon, Avenida do Brasil. It is a very pleasant and pleasant space. This is an open house. We are happy to receive researchers not only from Portugal, but also from any part of Europe, of the world, who wish to use the Archive.pt in their research. We will help you in any way we can. We welcome you all. Okay, this is the team, a small team, as you can see. In my presentation, I like to show this slide. The magic of a web archive is actually made of people. But let's stay here. João Gomes is the director of the area, advanced services area. But next, you can see Daniel Gomes is the founder of Archive.pt since its creation in 2007. While a student at the Faculty of Science of Lisbon, he devoted himself to collecting the web and creating search engine for its PhD. Then we have three young people, engineers, all engineers. Francisco, it's the manager of the system. He takes care of the machines. Pedro is the responsible for collections and the web collections. And Vasco develops the search interface, the site, the web app, etc. Finally, I, myself, as digital curator, I do human verification of the quality of the collections. I participate in the team's technical meetings, identify lists of sites by themes or by organizations. I make online exhibitions to publicize those sites, open data sets. I am responsible for training. I try to listen to the community, the researchers, and bring all that to my colleagues. There are some data of the volume of data at Archive.pt and the processing capacity employed. I want to highlight just that one. 32 million websites since 1996. Now I want to introduce the issue of the web preservation. The web is ephemeral. It is a problem. We all have gotten used, do not rely much on the web content to support our research. For example, in our papers, because of the instability of its content. It's good, I think. This is the most famous slide of Archive.pt, the slide of the 80%. The slide that justifies the usefulness of Archive.pt. 80% of the web pages disappear or change their content after only 1 year. This is what we do. Archive.pt take care of old pages and can replay it. This is the first page of the European Union. It doesn't have much content because the links behind the links, there's nothing, but this is interesting. So how does Archive.pt make the web collections? This slide shows in simplified form the 3 phases of web preservation: recording, storing, making available. It also shows somewhat technical terms associated with the process, such as crawler, WARC file format, WebEx, and CDX-J file. It is necessary to mention these terms because they are important for anyone who wants to use a web archive. This slide briefly presents the criteria that Archive.pt uses to gather contents from the web. Sorry for so much content. I think it gives an overview. So Arquivo collects Portuguese content, but also in other languages through special collections. There are also limits established, such as the size of contents. So, how you may know, the web is infinite. We can't go out everything. Let's see the search interface. Archive.pt have these features. We can search by URL, text, image, and narrative. Let's see the first example. The URL search. If you put on the Archive.pt an address and URL, you will get a list of versions of that address over time. For example, here you can see the daria.eu. Let's see, for example, let's click, for example, in the 2018 version. And you can see the replay of the page. Let's explore a little bit this. Notice the typical format of a website URL preserved in a web archive. It is a dated site. It has a timestamp everywhere at Archive.pt or at Internet Archive is the same. This long link can be used to reference this page. It can be used in collections of all websites, in footnotes or endnotes in scientific papers, for example. Use this format of. Another example. This example is a picture in GPG. You can see also the timestamp. Can you see in what day this picture was recorded? In 18 April 2008. Okay, this is the form of the timestamp, a set of numbers. Okay, let's see.
I think I was in that meeting.
Huh?
I recognize it.
Okay. We have also the text search. The text search returns results found on pages. It is similar to Google, but for the past. And I think we are not so good as Google. At present, Arquivo.pt is improving text search with forward, I think. Advanced search allows you to refine, for example, to search on a specific site or in a limited period of time. Internet Archive doesn't have a text search. But we have also image search is a rare case among web archives. It is an innovation by Arquivo.pt for its users. People like to click on images. The image is accompanied by metadata that allows you to know in what context it was published. This is very interesting. We care to give context. Okay. You can click, you can explore. We have also narrative or temporal summarization. This is an example of a narrative about European elections, an example, generated by the external service called Tell Me Story, in Portuguese, Conta-me Histórias. It was the winner of the Arquivo.pt Award 2018 and was integrated in Arquivo.pt. It uses the Arquivo.pt API. This slide is an invitation for you to explore the Arquivo.pt interface. Take a look to the right, options. Some of them can be very useful. For example, the complete page. In this example, you can see the replay of the Daria.iu version in 2009 was like this, incomplete without the style code, the CSS code. But after clicking on the options and complete page buttons, the replay of the Daria.iu version in 2009 improved like this and will be integrated in future views. The community can help Arquivo.pt to curate the replay, to curate and to improve. Okay, let's go. Or under options, explore the technical details of a page. Click, for example, in a list of expressions available there. For example, click on link to extracted text. Supplies, you will get only the text of a page. Imagine this applied to 1 million of pages. This is very nice for natural language processing or sometimes. a real case of the use of these expressions in technical details. This is the movie tour, a virtual museum about Portuguese tourism. They have created, in collaboration with us at fev.23, a collection about websites, and they use a link to screenshot to generate automatically the thumbnail in real time to appear in this digital library. This is Nairon, you know. Only a link puts in there, and this is something that Arquivo allows for integration in other services. That's why I will talk next. Arquivo.pt, a step forward. Yeah. Let's see this quote. Daniela Major is an historian and early stage researcher in digital humanities at the School of Advanced Study in London. She worked at Arquivo.pt, at Rossio as an historian who discovered how to use an web archive. She wrote in this blog post, dealing, you can read, she says, greater volume of data. Historians, people of digital humanities don't take care only about one or two cases. They can look forward and process millions of data. A world of possibilities for historians, arts, and so. Okay, I'll let you read this slide. API, Application Programming Interface, is a way for machines to talk to machines. It is an automatic search interface. The technical documentation on the API of Arquivo.pt is completely available on GitHub at Arquivo.pt/API. A tutorial that is also available for those who want to deepen the subject. This is important for working with the informatics. Probably you don't know about the API, but if you work in a team, you can have an idea what you can do. Data curation to help community. Arquivo.pt it's worried with the communication with giving things that people can use. This is a Google Sheet, a spreadsheet. We use this. We are not worried if we use something so simple like this. This is the list of collections preserved by Arquivo.pt. Is publicly available at Arquivo.pt/collections. It answers the questions researchers ask us. Do you have a list of the contents of all contents collected since 1996? The answer is yes. You have the list. And this other one. Are the pages you collect during the COVID-19, for example, already available? In this table, you can see that. Sure, there is some expressions you don't understand. For example, AWP1 stands for Archive Web Portuguese. French, but It was the first collection made by Arquivo.pt, and it took place in February and March 2008. The collection was made from 154,000 sites and resulted in 1.6 terabytes. It has been indexed. The index file is AWP for 15.cdxj, and it means it is in production. It is publicly accessible in the Arquivo.pt. You can search. You can see. This is what this means. We need to improve the description of the collections, and the community, when asks something to Arquivo, this is what we mean by curation. We need to improve the documentation, to give context, how in some way how George said previously in the presentation. Okay. We have also created a new service that allows researchers to download large amount of data without breaking the normal service. We create a bulk for download. I let you the link. You can see after this. So you can you don't need access the WAC files, the files we collected from the internet, and researchers sometimes ask us, can I use your original file what you have collected? And we tell them, don't worry about this. You don't need to download the files. You just need to download the CDX files, the indexes, because if you have the indexed files, you will able to access the content, the original content. Let's see if I can explain this. For example, if a researcher is looking for all contents from 1996 that are in AWP1 collection, marked on the left side, and wants to analyze the CDXJ files marked on the right, all he wants to do is follow the documentation available at arquivo.pt/API bulk and download it. If you download it, you can process it. The process requires some technical knowledge, which not all researchers have, but considering that they may work in teams or have help from more specialized colleagues, we think it is useful for everyone to know that this is possible to process large amounts of information using the Arquivo.pt API. Here is an example of the kind of information available in a CDXJ file and obtainable through the archive.pt API. It shows the date, the page was saved, the URL, and the MIME type if you only want pages or images, for example. You download and after you access 1 page or 1 million of pages. Okay. Five minutes enough. Digital corrections. This is other thing we do. These collections of web data are created from this is some lists and have been made by theme such artists, art galleries, sites, Portuguese newspapers, etc. There are also data sets that contain lists of websites that were the object of special collections, such European projects. You can explore this list that we published in this data portal. And we describe the content. It's very easy. I think this is a nice point to start a research. Look at this and see if you get what you want. This is a way to disseminate what we have. Remember, we have 32 million sites. We can curate everything, but we can prepare lists of small data sets that you can use. We do training to help and engage the community. You know, I like this one about the use of the API, but you can require others to do this for the community. A world of possibility. See, for example, the winners of the Archive.pt award since 2018. Wonderful works about 100 works used Archive.pt in 5 years. Wonderful cases of use. You can explore it. Only 3 are the winners, but this is very interesting. Okay. The Archive.pt annual award 2023 is coming, and a support of the President of the Republic of Portugal. Apply. This is the new service for researchers. I want you to be our beta testers. 1 minute, enough, I'm finishing. If you use a reference to web content in your paper, HTTP something, probably 1 year after or 2, those links you mentioned in your work will be broken. So use this Archive.pt citation saver. You put there your PDF, or you put there, you drop in a text with those links, and Archive.pt save a copy. So in 20 years, you will be able to click on your PDF, and you know, almost one place in the earth has a copy of that resource you use. See the catalog of services, contact us, keep in touch. Thank you very much. Sorry, my English, but I gave you the presentation. I hope it will be useful for you. Thank you very much.
We can now have debates. I don't know if some of you has any questions for either George or Carlo.
I have a question for the department. Hi. Do you have any plans to integrate the citations saver as a plugin or integrate it with Zotero or as a plugin for the browsers, for instance? Because a bit like the Wayback Machine for archive.org.
No, as a plugin, no, because a plugin implies that the user on the other side needs to install something, and users don't like to install even. So what we used to do is to create a service only in the archive.pt side. We put something, we receive the request, and we make all the work. We do the same with the self page now. We have a service called self page now. We are traveling, we are in the bus or in the train, in your phone, you just need to put a link and go. You don't need to install anything. But you will not have feedback as probably Internet Archive gives. But we don't worry, we don't want to carry on the user with a new plugin. That's why. But use this archive.pt citation saver. Archive.pt says page now.
Thank you.
Any more questions? No? So I have a question for George. I would like to know which can be the strategies to engage researchers with the importance of semantics and of knowledge graphs, because they are now used to FAIR principles and its importance, but I think that might be like a second step. Because in order to have that data to be available to be according to the FAIR principles, it has to be structured and it has to be according to web semantic principles. So what can we do for researchers to engage with this kind of theoretical problem?
Thank you for the question. I think it's chicken and egg or carrot and stick problem. So I know that, I mean, we know that, you know, funding for projects more and more sort of requires stipulates these FAIR principles, but the infrastructure really isn't there in a reasonable enough way to support researchers to do that. And so the stick is there, but not so much the carrot. And so I think part of what, you know, will get people involved is that they're not working towards an abstract aim, but they can immediately see some sort of gain. So in terms of providing gain, I think it sort of falls on to institutions to sort of prime the pump in terms of offering semantic data, which people can work off, which can demonstrate to them how they can make gains in their own research through applying it. So, you know, for example, the Getty Museum in the United States for years has been working on thesauri, and of course many European institutions, semantic thesauri, but then it's about providing layers of data that people can reuse and want to move into and participate in, that could make it interesting intellectually to do that work. And that probably has to happen at the disciplinary level. So, you know, there's a group of art historians who really want to do research that goes beyond their individual project, and they develop enough of a local infrastructure, whether it's via their institution or a smaller network, that allows them to do something that goes beyond their individual project and really delivers some sort of result that they couldn't get just by doing their research in their own spreadsheet or their own file maker or whatever they're already familiar with. So I think that's some part of the answer.
Yes, I think that could be a strategy too, because it's something really abstract to them. And if we put that into practice, it becomes something new, and there is a different awareness of the importance of semantics and of building knowledge graphs to develop their own projects.
Yeah, and it's community. So I think I pointed to a number of different semantic data platforms, and a lot of those are trying to move beyond just the technology, which is, okay, you can make semantic data and put it in a graph and interact with it in an interface. And they're trying to work with communities to be able to publish the fact that they have this semantic data and it can be reused, and make the connections between the communities in the first place. You have this data and it's relevant to that data. What if you were to join that? What things could you learn? So.
Yes, and that is part of the aim of the infrastructure, to join those kind of data. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
More questions?
Vamos aproveitar agora também que temos algum tempo para debate, se quiserem colocar questões aos colegas que apresentaram. So you can ask, we could take this moment to ask questions for the colleagues that were here in the morning and we were not able to present questions to them. Edward is here, so if you have any question about ARIA, about how the ways that you can collaborate with ARIA, please feel free also. And for George also for Ricardo, of course. Yes, Paul is also here. So Margarida also. So since now we are finishing, we can make some questions. Edward, please.
Yeah, one thing I would like to sort of add is, you know, I talked about the shop marketplace, the SSH open marketplace, and then the colleague that followed me talked about the EOS marketplace, and often a question, how do they work together? The way it works is the EOS, as he put up there, is one where you have to be the legal entity responsible for the format, and it's very controlled, and it's a very serious process for products with a high technological readiness levels. They're very much finished products, and it's for everyone. Whereas the SSH open marketplace is just for SSH resources, and anyone can put something on. I mean, we still verify it, but it's the barrier to entry is much lower, and you can put you know, little bits of orphan code. It's not as high technological readiness level. And of course, anything that is in the EOS marketplace is automatically harvested to the shop marketplace. So we would make sure that continuous ingestion stays up to date. But that was sort of a question I often get in my shop role, is to sort of explain what is the difference between the two, and I wanted to make sure that was clear. Don't know if it is now, but I feel better.
Well, I do have a question, George. Probably some guidance or some notes that, with your experience working with research infrastructure. My name is Daniel. I'm one of the coordinators or researchers in the Rossio infrastructure. And one thing that we deal with all these years that we were building the system, and now that it's already out there, one of our concerns is that did we build a good tool for the researchers? So the tool is out there. Do the researchers are going to use it? from your experience working with other research infrastructures, what can we do to present this as something that is useful, something that is to have an impact in the research of the community, not only here at Nova, but out there also?
Thanks for the question. I mean, I think that's the biggest challenge, you know, possibly even bigger than building the infrastructure in the first place, is bringing the people to it. And I know that it was a huge challenge in the Parthenos project because it was such an abstract, it's an abstraction and an abstraction. And so it wasn't very obvious how to communicate with communities at all. So my experience is better in the context, in the more local context of getting people interested in the ontologies and the semantic data formatted in the ontologies that we're creating. And so for that, I mean, it creates interest in the communities when we have developed these complex competency questions for what you can find via this resource and the complex ways you can return data. And so sort of engaging people, you know, engaging the research audience in question, finding out the kinds of things that they want to question. I mean, I'm sure you've already done this, but you know, that's the most effective in terms of piking the intellectual curiosity of the target audience and trying to get them involved in saying, oh, I really want to use this technology because I wasn't able to answer that or make that query and come up with some answers without this technology, or it was much more difficult, and now it's slightly easier.
Yeah, thank you. I think probably that's one of the ways, or probably the best way to do it. I see that probably we could make another workshop like this, but asking researchers, well, come here, experience use the tool, try to answer something, and then put out there some examples of things that are going to work. And if people next time will come to the platform and see examples of researchers of research that can find information that it's useful for them, probably it can be a way of connecting the communities to the portal. Oh, we lose George.
I think one thing that you just now mentioned, I think it's one of the many aims of EOSC, exactly to connect the different projects and institutions, but also the research results and work in progress. So as also you mentioned, the shock is always connecting with EOSC. So I think part of that problem will not really be solved, but more or less.
We're getting better.
Yes.
Bit by bit, we're getting better. We're getting it's a long process. Infrastructure is a very long process, especially on the European level when you're dealing with various different ministries that have changed research priorities. We're making progress, slowly but surely.
I have one question to ask you, Danielle, and it's about Rossio. I'm very sorry, but I just arrived in Portugal a few months ago, so I'm very acquainted to this. But can any national institution here in Portugal join Rossio, or because the funding, from what I understood before, has already finished closed or something like that, other institutions are not able to join?
No, they are.
They are still?
Yeah, the funding stopped in March. So foi março. Nós ficamos sem financiamento.
Yes.
March. Funding stopped in March 2022, And since then, we to the infrastructure joined Universidade de Coimbra, Direção-Geral de Cultura dos Açores e da Madeira, National Library, Biblioteca Nacional. And now we are in the process of joining the military archives, several military archives also, and Câmara Municipal de Sintra, o Arquivo Histórico da Sintra. So it's possible, of course, not as at the same pace, at the same velocity that was possible before, because we had a larger team fully dedicated to the project. Now, here in the faculty, we give support. Some of the human resources from Rossio still work in the faculty, but they have to give support to other projects, not only Rossio. So the pace will be slower, but it's possible. So all you have to do is contact Amélia and see what type of
not to join to Rossio.
not to join to Rossio, but the content provider. Yeah.
I saw the consortium must agree with the new program.
Because from what I understood, so Rossio, to get a knowledge shared up, as George mentions in one of his slides, by joining Rossio, because Rossio is connected to Aguiar and to Shock, and the shared up knowledge would be more or less also taken care of.
Yes, Rossio is the national node representative in Aguiar. So one of our goals is also to help to stimulate the community to contribute to the marketplace or other tools in the area. So, and that could be directly, of course, you can do it directly, or via Rossio. But as integrating Rossio as a content provider, although there is a bureaucratic process and some things, but I think it's now probably more easier, not so fast, but probably more easier now than it was before, because now we are stabilized the system. We know how to work with the technology, how to integrate the data. From that point of view, it's of course we have also taken into attention the balance of the consortium, because it is important, because we're not funded and there is a diplomatic balance inside the consortium that we should preserve. But I think yes, the answer is it's easy. Send them an email and we will. At least we can start talking.
I was trying to connect all of your presentations exactly. If there are no more questions, we can close the session.
So, George, thank you. I think we lost you, but then you are back again. We are just finishing. I think you are muted.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry to disappear in the middle of the discussion. My internet broke.
No problem. But we are closing. So thank you again for participating in the session. Tomorrow, if you want to, we can send you the link so you can watch the sessions tomorrow if you are interested.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you again.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Do you think in the end you will be able to give us permission to share the PowerPoint? You can share
Yes,
with
I'll
us?
do that. Yeah.
Okay.